Hey there. Let's talk about something that no one really explains, but everyone feels, especially when it comes to love. Men fall in love because of this one thing, but women, most don't even see it. Now, before you jump to conclusions, I'm not saying women don't love. I'm saying they often miss what actually makes a man fall. And if we're honest, most men don't know how to explain it either. Let's take a moment and talk about something men rarely say out loud, but it sits deep beneath the surface of how they move through relationships. Men fall in love through respect. And I know that word might sound stiff or outdated to some. It's not flashy. It's not poetic, but it's powerful. It's foundational. Now, when I say respect, I don't mean admiration from a distance. I mean the kind of daily, quiet acknowledgement that says, I see you, I value the way you think, I trust your judgment, I believe in who you are. Because here's the thing, for most men, love doesn't start in conversation. It starts in the background, in how you treat him, in how you talk about him when he's not in the room, in how you respond when he brings you ideas or shares plans or opens up in those rare unguarded moments. See, men are trained, whether they realize it or not, to earn respect in the world through performance, through work, through action. But love requires vulnerability, and that's a different territory. What opens that door for a man isn't just affection or praise. It's when someone sees the effort, the intention, the strength beneath the surface, and doesn't try to shrink it or reshape it, but instead reflects it back with respect. That's the switch. That's the moment he starts to feel something deeper. Not just attraction, but attachment. He begins to trust you with more of himself, not because you pulled it out of him, but because he felt safe enough to bring it to you. Because he doesn't feel judged or constantly corrected, he feels trusted. And for most men, that's the highest form of love they recognize. It's when you ask for his opinion and actually consider it. It's when you let him lead sometimes, not because you can't, but because you choose to trust him with something. That little bit of trust grows into confidence, and that confidence builds connection. Let me be clear, this doesn't mean you should silence your voice or hold back your intelligence. Not at all. A man who's truly grounded wants your mind, your clarity, your strength. But the kind of woman who can challenge a man and still show she respects him, that's the rare combination that keeps a man anchored. Sometimes it shows up in the smallest moments. You thank him for doing something without being asked. You say, I love how you handled that. Or you let him finish his thought before correcting it. These aren't big moves, but they're deeply felt. Because here's the truth, most men walk through the world feeling like they're only as valuable as what they produce. So when they find someone who sees value in who they are, even without the performance, that's when the wall starts to lower. And here's something else that's important. Respect doesn't mean agreement all the time. You can disagree with him, challenge him, set boundaries. But the way you do it with calm, with kindness, with belief in his ability to hear you, that's what keeps the connection from breaking. It's not about shrinking yourself to boost him. It's about building a space where both people are seen and heard, but where he knows that even in disagreement, your view of him as a man hasn't collapsed. That's why a man can hear criticism from the world all day long and brush it off. But if the woman he loves talks to him like he's a failure, like he can't lead, like he can't figure things out, that hits differently, that sits deep. Because when respect disappears, love starts to feel unsafe. But when it's there, even in hard moments, a man can relax into the relationship. He doesn't feel like he's constantly proving himself. He doesn't feel like he has to win love. He starts to associate you with something rare. Peace, trust, belonging. And when a man feels respected, he doesn't just give love, he pours it. He becomes more affectionate, more intentional, more open, not because you asked for it, but because you earned the part of him most people never get to see. So if you ever wonder what makes a man fall in love and stay in love, it's often not the grand gestures. It's the daily, quiet evidence that you believe in him, not just in what he does, but in who he is. That's what respect looks like. And that's what builds real lasting love for a man. Let's talk about something that's often misunderstood in relationships, how men fall in love, not just with you, but with how they feel about themselves when they're with you. That's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. And honestly, that's what most women don't see happening in real time. For a man, falling in love isn't always about words or romance, the way it's often portrayed. It's about the emotional experience, the internal shift that happens when he feels like the best version of himself in your presence, when he feels like he's winning, not performing, when he feels like he's being accepted, not evaluated. It's simple. If a man feels like a failure around you, even if you don't mean for him to, he'll pull away. It might not be dramatic. He may not say a word, but emotionally, he checks out. Because no one stays in a place where they feel small, where they feel like they're constantly messing up, constantly disappointing, constantly not enough. Now, here's the thing. Most men don't say this out loud, and they're not even always fully aware that this is what's happening, but they feel it deeply, and they respond to it quietly. But if he feels like he can be himself, flaws and all, and still be valued, that's when something shifts. That's when he starts to emotionally invest. Because now, being around you feels like relief, not pressure. It's not about you coddling him. It's not about lowering your standards. It's about how you respond to who he is and how that makes him feel about himself. When he says something vulnerable and you don't laugh, when he admits a mistake and you don't make it a bigger deal, when he opens up and you don't rush to correct or criticize, you just listen. That's when you become the one he trusts. That's when you become home. Men often live in performance mode. Work, society, expectations, they're constantly being measured by their output. And sometimes they bring that same performance mindset into relationships. Am I doing enough? Did I say the right thing? Is she happy with me today? And if every interaction feels like a grade being handed down, love starts to feel like a test, not a connection. But when you shift the space from judgment to safety, something powerful happens. He doesn't just feel loved, he feels free. And freedom is a rare feeling for most men. Freedom to mess up without it being used against them. Freedom to speak honestly without being shut down. Freedom to relax into the relationship instead of walking on eggshells. That's why it's not always about the things you say. Sometimes it's about the energy you carry. Do you give him space to breathe emotionally? Or is there a quiet tension that says, you're still not getting it right? Let's be honest. You can love someone deeply and still make them feel like they're constantly falling short. You can have good intentions and still create pressure. And that's where awareness comes in. When a man feels like a better version of himself because he's with you, when he walks taller, thinks clearer, loves deeper, that's when he stays. Not out of obligation, not out of comfort, but because he genuinely wants to. Because you reflect back to him a version of himself that he actually likes. That's what most people miss. It's not just about how you feel around him. It's about how he feels around you. If he feels seen, respected, valued, not for what he does, but for who he is, that feeling becomes addictive. It becomes what he associates with you. And over time, that association turns into trust, and that trust turns into love. But if he feels criticized, belittled, or constantly under pressure, even the strongest man will eventually shut down. Not because he doesn't care, not because he doesn't love, but because emotionally it becomes unsafe to show up fully. And when emotional safety is gone, emotional connection follows. So what do you do with that? You don't have to walk on eggshells. You don't have to stroke his ego. But what you can do is pay attention to how he responds to you emotionally, not just in arguments, but in everyday moments. Does he light up when you speak to him? Or does he brace for correction? Does he open up to you about his ideas and dreams? Or does he stay quiet? Those little cues will tell you everything. Because at the end of the day, men fall for the space where they feel emotionally safe, respected, and stronger, not weaker, because of who they're with. That's the part women don't always notice. But that's the part that matters most. Because love isn't just about how you see him, it's about how you make him see himself. And if he feels like a man he's proud to be when he's with you, that's where love begins. And that's where it stays. There's something we don't talk about enough, not in relationships, not in culture, and definitely not in the way men are raised. It's this: most men don't need someone to fix them. What they really need, what makes them stay, what makes them trust, what makes them fall in love, is someone who simply understands them. Now that may sound small, but it's not. It's actually massive. Because for most men, being understood is a rare experience. Not because they're so complicated, but because they've been trained for years, sometimes decades, to keep everything in, not to complain, not to break down, not to burden others with what they're feeling. So what do? They push it all down. They handle it on their own. They solve it quietly. And that habit, it doesn't turn off in a relationship. Even when they care deeply, even when they love you, that instinct to protect themselves by staying silent, it stays with them. So when a woman comes into their life and says, just talk to me, open up, I'm here, it's not that they don't want to, it's that they don't know how to believe that's really safe. They've been told for years that their emotions are a problem. And suddenly someone says they want to hear them. That takes time. That takes trust. Here's where it gets tricky. A lot of times when a man does start opening up just a little, what happens? He gets advice, solutions, fix-it mode. And again, that's not out of malice. It's coming from love. It's coming from a good place. But to him, it feels like, okay, I was barely brave enough to say this, and now I'm being corrected. And the next time, he pulls back. He says, I'm good. When he's not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't want to feel misunderstood again. See, for a man, opening up is less about words and more about reaction. He's not watching what you say. He's watching how you say it. Your tone, your eyes, your energy. He's asking, is this safe? Am I still being respected? Even while I'm being vulnerable? And if that answer is yes, you'll see him slowly start to open more. Not all at once, but layer by layer. That's why understanding matters more than fixing, because fixing focuses on problems. Understanding focuses on people. And when a man feels understood, not judged, not analyzed, not coached, but truly understood, it builds a kind of bond that's hard to break. That's when he starts to associate you with safety. That's when the armor starts to come off. You might notice it in small ways. He tells you about something that went wrong at work, not just the facts, but how it made him feel. That's a big deal. He shares a memory from childhood, something he never talks about. That's trust. He admits a fear. That's intimacy. Those are the moments when love is actually growing, not in the big romantic gestures, but in the quiet moments where he feels like he doesn't have to explain or defend who he is. He can just be. And you're still there. You're still listening. You're not trying to fix. You're just present. Let me be really clear here. Understanding doesn't mean enabling. It doesn't mean you never hold him accountable. It doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior. But it means you approach him as a whole person, not a project. You don't see his flaws as something that need immediate correction. You see them as part of the full picture, and you respond with clarity and compassion. Because here's the truth. A lot of men walk through life with this silent question in the back of their mind. If I show who I really am, will I still be loved? And if the answer from you is a consistent yes, not through words, but through actions, through how you listen, how you respond, that's when he stops bracing. That's when he stops hiding. That's when he starts loving deeply, openly, fully. Because love for a man isn't just about feeling attraction. It's about feeling emotionally seen without being emotionally exposed. And when you become the person who doesn't jump to solutions, but instead just sits with him in his moment, even the hard ones, you become someone different in his world. You become the one he turns to, not just for fun, not just for company, but for truth, for rest, for real connection. That's the kind of understanding that makes a man feel safe. And when he feels safe, that's when he loves harder than ever before. Not because you fixed him, but because you didn't try to. You just got him. And for a man, that's everything. Men don't always say it out loud, but they feel it in every part of their being. The need for their effort to be noticed, not necessarily celebrated, not made a big deal of, just seen, acknowledged, appreciated. It's easy to miss this one, especially in relationships that have been going for a while. The early days are filled with thank yous and compliments and noticing all the little things. But over time, it can start to slip. You get into routines, you expect certain things, and what once felt thoughtful starts to feel expected. And here's where things quietly shift in a man's heart and often his love life. Because when a man puts effort into something, whether it's as small as taking out the trash without being asked or as big as planning a weekend getaway, it's not just about what he's doing, it's about why. And that why is often love. Men are wired to express love through action. Fixing something around the house, showing up on time, getting your favorite coffee, handling a bill, making a sacrifice without saying a word. That's him saying, I love you. Even if he's not the most verbal guy, that's him trying. That's his love language, and it shows up in what he does. So when those actions go unnoticed, or even worse, are met with indifference or criticism, it stings in a deep place most men don't even talk about. And over time, that sting turns into silence. That silence turns into distance, not out of spite, not out of anger, but because when effort feels invisible, motivation slowly disappears with it. Now, let's be real. This isn't about babying anyone. This isn't about giving out awards for every chore. It's about understanding the heart behind the action. It's about choosing to pause and recognize. He didn't have to do that. He chose to. And when you see that, when you say something as simple as, hey, I noticed that, thank you, something happens. His shoulders relax, his chest lifts a little, his eyes soften, because now he feels like she gets it, she sees me. And here's the deeper truth. When a man feels appreciated, he does more. Not because he's being manipulated, but because appreciation lights a fire in him. It motivates him. It makes him want to show up stronger, more often, with more intention. That's why appreciation isn't small. It's relational glue. It keeps the bond alive through all the day-to-day stuff. It keeps resentment from creeping in. It keeps the relationship from going cold. And it works both ways. Everyone wants to feel seen. Everyone wants to feel that what they give isn't taken for granted. But again, for men, this is often the primary way they're showing love. So when that goes unrecognized, it's not just a missed moment, it's a misconnection. It might be easy to think, well, that's just what he's supposed to do. And sure, being responsible, contributing, showing up, those are baseline expectations. But when you start treating everything as an obligation and nothing as a gift, love starts to feel like labor. That's when couples start drifting. That's when the spark begins to fade. So let me offer this. Make appreciation a habit, not just a reaction. Don't wait for birthdays or anniversaries to recognize him. Catch him in the act of loving you through his effort. Catch the way he picks you up without complaint, the way he protects your peace without saying a word, the way he steps up even on days he's tired. It doesn't take much. A look, a quick touch on the arm, a genuine thank you for doing that. I see you. Those are the little deposits that keep the emotional bank full. And if he ever tells you, it's not a big deal. Believe me, it is. He may brush it off, but that moment will stay with him. He'll remember how it felt to be noticed, to be appreciated, to be valued. You might be surprised how much more he opens up, engages, and gives, not because you asked for more, but because you responded to what he already gave. So when you think about love, don't just think about the big gestures. Think about the everyday, the ordinary, because that's where most men are loving you, right in the middle of life's chaos, quietly, steadily, in ways you might not even realize are his version of I love you. And when you notice that, when you name it, you're not just making him feel good, you're building trust, you're deepening connection. You're saying, without having to say it, I see you, and I'm grateful. And for a man who gives love through effort, that one sentence is everything. There's something that often gets misunderstood when it comes to men and emotions. People tend to assume that men are emotionally distant because they don't feel as deeply. That couldn't be further from the truth. Men feel a lot, but here's what makes the difference. Men only open up emotionally where they feel safe to do so. Now I want you to think about that word for a second. Safe. Not fun, not exciting, not even romantic. Just safe, emotionally safe. Because without that, no amount of love, attraction, or commitment will make a man open up. He might be present physically. He might still do all the right things, but emotionally, he'll be locked up, guarded, and you won't be able to reach him. Not really. For a lot of men, the world has never been a safe place to talk about how they feel. From the time they were young, they were taught to toughen up. Don't cry, don't complain, don't show weakness. And so what do? They build walls. And over time, they forget they're even behind them. But relationships, real relationships, aren't about staying behind walls. They're about being known. And for a man to step into that space, he has to believe deep in his core that he won't be shamed, attacked, or dismissed for what he shares. That's what emotional safety is. It's the tone you use when you disagree. It's whether you listen or interrupt. It's how you respond when he shares something that isn't polished or perfect. It's the quiet message you send, moment by moment. You can be real with me, and I'm not going anywhere. Now, let me be clear. This doesn't mean you avoid hard conversations. It doesn't mean you hold back on what you need. You can be direct and still be safe. You can have standards and still create space, because safety doesn't come from silence. It comes from respect. A man will stay where he feels respected. A man will grow where he feels understood. A man will love freely when he's not walking on emotional eggshells. So what makes a man feel unsafe? It's not just yelling. It's not just obvious things. Sometimes it's sarcasm that cuts too deep. It's constant comparison, being told what other men do better. It's hearing you always or you never in a moment that didn't need blame, just honesty. It's that sigh when he tries and it still feels like it's not enough. And look, none of this is about being perfect. We're all human. We all get frustrated. But the point is this: emotional safety isn't about what you say once. It's about the environment you build over time. That environment determines whether a man feels like he can fully bring his heart into the relationship or if he needs to keep it guarded. And here's the thing. When a man starts to feel safe, you'll notice he'll shift. He'll start saying things like, I have never told anyone this before. He'll start asking for your thoughts, not just giving his. He'll bring his vulnerability out into the light, not because you forced it, but because you earned it. And that kind of trust, that's what deep love is built on. Because love without safety is unstable. It doesn't last. You can have chemistry, attraction, shared goals, but if he doesn't feel safe emotionally, the connection will stay shallow, or worse, it will fade. Not because he doesn't care, but because every conversation feels like a risk he can't afford to take. Now, I want you to hear this too. This doesn't mean it's all on you. He has to be doing the work too. He has to be self-aware. He has to want to grow. But if you're showing up with kindness, with grace, with honesty, that doesn't cut him down. You're giving him a chance to meet you in that safe space. And when he does, that's when you'll see who he really is. Not the surface level version, not the one that's just trying to keep the peace, but the real him, thoughts, fears, dreams, memories. And that's when you feel truly chosen, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because men don't fall in love with people who challenge them the most. They fall in love with people who make it safe to be fully themselves while growing. So if you want more emotional connection, if you're asking, why won't he open up? Start with this question, does he feel emotionally safe with me? And if the answer is yes, if you've created that calm space where mistakes don't equal shame, where disagreement doesn't mean disconnection, then trust me, he'll bring his heart to you. Not all at once, but in moments, in pieces. And with every layer he peels back, he'll love you more for giving him a place where he could finally breathe. One thing I've come to learn, not just as a professional, but as a man, is that consistency isn't flashy. It doesn't get a standing ovation. It's not posted all over social media, but it's the one thing men quietly crave and often fall in love with more than anything else. It's not always about the butterflies. It's about the stability, the rhythm, the feeling of knowing where you stand. See, men are often painted as these simple creatures. Give them food, sex, a little peace and quiet, and they're happy. That might be the surface version. But if you scratch a little deeper, you'll find that men, especially the ones looking to build something real, are looking for someone who brings emotional consistency to their life. Not perfection. Not someone who's always cheerful or never disagrees, but someone who is reliable in how they show up. Because life is chaotic enough. A man deals with pressure from work, financial stress, expectations he may never speak about. He's carrying a lot, most of it silently. And when he thinks about love, what he's really thinking is, can I trust her to be steady with me, even when things get messy? Consistency is the quiet reassurance that you won't become a different person every time emotions rise. It's knowing that your words and actions line up, that if you say you're with him, you don't weaponize that commitment the next time you're upset. It's the difference between peace and tension, between him relaxing into love or bracing for emotional whiplash. Let's be honest, we all have off days. We all react poorly sometimes. But when those moments become the norm, when emotional highs and lows feel like a roller coaster, that's when a man starts to emotionally retreat. Not because he doesn't care, not because he's giving up, but because he doesn't know what version of the relationship he's walking into from one day to the next. And when a man has to constantly manage your emotions, he stops sharing his own. He goes quiet. He starts managing, not connecting, not bonding, managing. That's not partnership, that's survival. Now, this doesn't mean bottling everything up to keep things calm. It doesn't mean ignoring conflict or avoiding truth. It just means having emotional honesty with emotional discipline. It means saying, I'm hurt instead of attacking. It means bringing things up in a way that invites resolution, not defensiveness. It means letting love be a safe rhythm, not a constant test. Because what a lot of women don't always realize is this. When a man falls in love with consistency, he's not falling in love with predictability. He's falling in love with peace. And peace, in today's world, is rare. It's a gift. It doesn't mean nothing ever goes wrong. It just means that when something goes wrong, we handle it with grace, with care, with a mindset that says we're on the same team, even when we disagree. And when a man finds that in a woman, that sense that her love isn't based on the mood of the moment, but on the strength of the connection, he locks in, he shows up, he leans in because he doesn't have to question the foundation anymore. He can build on it. Men don't fall for chaos. They might chase it for a season, but they don't build with it. What they build with is someone who's dependable, not just in action, but in emotional posture. Someone who doesn't swing wildly from praise to punishment. Someone who isn't constantly testing his loyalty or measuring his love by drama. Someone who brings calm to conflict, not confusion. You want to know why so many good men end up loving quietly, but deeply. It's because they're looking for someone they can trust with their peace. And when they find that, when they find a woman who is consistent in how she loves, how she speaks, how she respects him, they don't just fall, they stay. Because falling in love is easy. Staying in love, that's built on rhythm, on trust, on the unspoken agreement that says, you can count on me, even when we're not at our best. So if you want to know what makes a man fall in love and keep loving, check the consistency. Do your words build or break? Does your tone invite or intimidate? Do your actions align with what you say you want? Because that's what speaks loudest. That's what stays with him after the argument is over or the day is done. Men don't need a perfect partner, but the ones who are ready to love, truly love, they're looking for someone who brings calm, not chaos. Someone who is steady, not conditional. Because when a woman is consistent, she becomes his peace. And that's when a man truly feels at home,